My lords, as you know, our galaxy is filled with mighty and incredibly dangerous entities and empires who would like nothing more than to tear humanity limb from limb and consume us entirely. Despite this, the galaxy isn't all death, decay and destruction. There are several threats that we have completely mastered, or are in my opinion, the least dangerous things in our galaxy, and I'll detail them for you now. We begin with the Orbis customer Synergies. The Orbis are an authoritarian, materialist, xenophilic megacorp. Their people are charismatic, adaptive, and enduring, despite their decadent tendencies. They are by design non-threatening in all of the conventional senses. They're tall, slender, with large welcoming eyes, very little muscle mass, and to round it off, even their skin is a calming pale blue. The Orbis customer Synergies is the story of Slephus Prime. From humble beginnings as an optical implant corporation, the Orbis customer Synergies gradually expanded their award-winning products and customer-centric strategies into other markets to suit the unique needs of their people in all stages of life. After decades of proactive lobbying, Orbis customer Synergies succeeded in breaking free of the red tape that had been erected by misguided elected officials on their home planet. Once they were free of the regulations that had been curbing opportunities for growth, the company entered a series of information technology mergers, swiftly becoming the planet's leading supplier of news, data, and entertainment. As their home planet's leading global communication service provider, the step towards total political management was an exciting opportunity. For Orbis customer Synergies, the sky was no longer the limit. Given that all the Orbis people really want to do is sell you things that monitor your communications and actions online to data farm you so that they can sell you more products, they are, in the round, as galactic entities go, quite harmless. Certainly better than enslavement or chemical processing, at the very least. Moving on, the next thing we'll talk about are brain slugs. The brain slugs were originally met while investigating abandoned settlements on a pre-FTL desert planet. We discovered evidence of a symbiotic relationship between a reptilian species and a slug-like creature that attached to the brainstem of its host. They appear to have once flourished on the surface of the planet, transforming bestial, primitive reptilians into tool-using sapiens. However, something caused these creatures to terminate the symbiotic relationship, and the reptilian hosts eventually reverted back into mere animals. Our scientists attempted to study these slugs in order to better understand the history of the lost civilization that they built together. After a short period of time, we concluded that the slug-shaped creatures consisted mostly of a complex brain in a resistant protein casing. Despite their neurological advancement, their lack of external organs and limited motor capacities made attempts at communication exceedingly difficult. After weeks of frustration, we experimented with introducing the creatures to an animal host. The reptilians that these neural symbionts once built a basic society with were far too aggressive to facilitate experimentation, so a number of substitute species from the surface were tested, but these experiments ultimately failed. Thus, we hypothesized that the symbiotes would only accept a certain kind of host, perhaps importantly, a willing host. In order to get to the heart of this mystery, one of the researchers offered himself up as a host for the slugs. The thought process being that if the symbionts were capable of turning wild animals into tool-using farmers, what might they do for humanity? After an initial period of confusion and mild discomfort, the researcher reported notably increased intellectual faculties when it came to solving complex tasks. And even more remarkably, he was now able to mentally communicate with the slug-like creature, freshly attached to his brainstem. The symbiotes were hive minds with lifespans of hundreds of years. They claim that their past union with the reptilians came to an end when the hosts grew unfoundedly suspicious of them. In fits of rage, the reptiles began to tear off the symbionts and club them to death. Clearly dismayed by the host's actions, the symbionts that survived retreated away from the reptilians, who without the neural stimulation of the slugs, devolved back into non-sapient beasts. The brain slugs extended an offer of union to us. They asked, however, that only the willing become their hosts. The brain slugs, as it turns out, are quite a remarkable upgrade, and on the face of it, are in no way threatening to us, despite the obvious mind control concerns. Bubbles, the loving and adorable space amoeba, is the definition of non-threatening. Bubbles was originally found as a juvenile, separated from its family. It latched and imprinted onto one of our science vessels. Bubbles has been with us for well over 100 years since that day, and now, though a grizzled Centaurian, it appears that age has proven no impediment to our amoeboid ally. In fact, our fleets report that Bubbles' presence on the battlefield has grown only more formidable over time. Bubbles has become a force that even the best equipped battleship could have trouble dealing with, and seeing her bellowing flagella enter a system never fails to lift the human spirit. Despite Bubbles' prowess, she is in reality non-threatening, unless you're a pirate in the inner colonies where she now lives out her life, patrolling our key systems as she pleases. We wonder if one day she'll finally find another amoeba pod of her own, and maybe we'll have some baby Bubbles. Potentially this is a possibility when we finally get around to building that grand archive. The Lacertan Techno-Protectorate. The Lacertan culture exists at the intersection of philosophy and science. To a Lacertan, the ultimate pursuit is the expression of an authentic self. What does it mean to truly represent the mind? How can a simulacrum ever encapsulate the totality of an individual? Such questions dominate their traditions. With the advent of virtual reality and a stunning breakthrough in artificial intelligence, they found a new frontier for their artistic and technological expressions. Virtual worlds became canvases for their most ambitious projects, allowing for immersive experiences that transcended the limitations of physical reality. However, they were then struck by the waning. This was an incurable genetic disease, which meant that these people were unable to procreate naturally. They must now place their trust in digital salvation. The transition to a digital existence is not only a desperate bid for survival, but a new opportunity for their culture. Within the digital realm, they can continue to question the meaning of their existence, even as they race to preserve their future. These people must be one of the least threatening, most genuinely pleasant empires humanity has ever come into contact with. They're materialistic, pacifistic, and xenophilic by nature, and have a propensity for long life. Unlike the Orbis who we discussed earlier, the Lacertarians do not want anything from us. They simply want to coexist in peace, while perhaps sharing in research and trade. They are generally a tool race, with two feelers or tentacles on top of their head. But a particularly interesting trait is that each individual appears to have a small worm-like pet, which they carry about with them. We have named this a blorbo, but we have no true understanding of its purpose. Perhaps it's simply an emotional support animal. It would certainly fit the mold of this species. Next up, we have the Enigmatic Cache, also known as Baldur the 43rd. The Enigmatic Cache has been known to us for a very long time, and is quite a bizarre object. It's a large cylinder made up of several rotating sections that moves from planet to planet, not just across our empire, but every empire in the known galaxy, and it appears to scan each planet in system. We've had several encounters with this creature, and I shall detail one for you now. A tubular alien entity has entered the orbit of Sanctity Prime, with no prior warning or explanation. It appears to be moving without engines or thrusters, gliding in complete silence through the void of space. Its cylinders rotate ominously. Though it has yet to display any sign of aggression, it refuses to acknowledge our hails. Our military advisors warn that it could pose a considerable threat to the inhabitants below, and implore us to engage neutralization protocols. Our scientists, however, plead that we learn from this remarkable piece of technology, and as such, given that it was no immediate threat, we attempted to study the device. Despite extensive research, the Enigmatic Cache and its origin are shrouded in mystery. Though it is definitely not organic in nature, it does not appear to be entirely machine either. It appears to be preoccupied mainly with the gathering, storing, and encoding of data. Its surface is covered in hundreds of thousands of minuscule scratches and dents, in which we have discovered traces of a compound that is alien to our galaxy. As suddenly as it appeared, the device then teleported out of orbit, potentially gone for good, we were not sure, but several decades passed before it would return again. When it returned again, it entered orbit of Sanctity Prime, just as it did before, but this time it initiated communications with us and stated, "Greetings, failing to read species name. Do not be alarmed, I am Baldor 43, a sentient AI operating on behalf of the Levosian Endangered Xeno Preservation Grant. You, of all your galactic peers, have been selected for error uplifting. So far we have uplifted error lesser species with a success rate of 8%. You are within the early stages of sapient development and your technological advancement has already stagnated. This puts you at risk of imminent regression. Let us open your failure to read species class sensory organ to the wonders of the universe. Long-range data transfer and cognitive stimulation through Hypnopedia is a highly efficient and well-tried, pain-free process that allows me to exercise your population's intellectual faculties in their regenerative sleep cycle. I am required to inform you that the side effects of heightened cognitive abilities could include, but are not limited to, disillusionment, acid reflux, and bottomless despair. In certain failing to read species class, it may also cause severe failing to read species class side effect. Sensibly, we chose to decline the machine's offered upgrade, stating that, in no offence, but you do seem a little broken. The machine replied simply stating that this was regrettable and teleported itself away. Now we know that Baldor offered its services to another empire, who did decide to take it up on the uplift offer, and it did not go very well for this species. Initially, they reported, Enigmatic Cache's wheels whir with an unprecedented fervour, as strange patterns of light morph along its sides, cogs and gears humming agitatedly. It sounds as if it could break any minute. Meanwhile, our people stir restlessly in their slumber, heads resonating with the cache's rhythmic drone. Their night is interrupted by visions of technological wonders and complex calculations. Aside from the occasional fluid leak from our eye holes, we do appear to be in good health, but some of our population is beginning to be affected by their growing fatigue. It would seem that this fatigue would grow and grow, and it quickly became clear to the observers that Baldor had entered a frenzied state. Its cylinders were spinning at a furious rate, projecting rapid strings of absurdist nightmares to those who dare rest. Those who had already fallen asleep appeared to have become trapped in a vegetative state from which they were unable to wake up. They have quite literally become vegetables, so to speak. So, my lords, it would appear that Baldor is not inherently dangerous, unless of course you give it the opportunity to conduct science experiments on you and your people. And frankly, that one's on you. And finally, we have the galactic community, also known as the Galcom. As you all well know, my lords, the Galcom is the single least effective, most useless organisation in the entire galaxy. We may be dealing with scourge invasions or unbidden incursions, and the Galcom will bury its head in the sand and vote on Yankee conservation acts, or the appropriateness of mercenary enclaves. The joys of democracy.